Deb. All right, now we've got the warm-up music fading out. We are going to record the audio there. Going to turn the music off totally. There it is. Okay. Hello, everybody. If you're watching, if you're not watching, what's the point in saying hello to you? You're not there, right? Okay. So we are taking phone calls today. The subject is going to be battle flags. Are we limiting it to the Battle of Gettysburg? Yeah. Battle flags at the Battle of Gettysburg. Deb Novotny is our guest. The number is 717-420-1978. If we have a lot of calls in the queue, I will try to mix them in as we go along. If we don't, then when we take the commercial break, which won't actually be a commercial break, it'll be just a pause of a couple of seconds. Then after that is when I start doing the questions that people submitted. And that's also another time when you can call in. I don't know. I kind of prefer that maybe, well, whatever. I don't have a preference. We'll see how it goes. It's kind of good when we mix callers in with everybody because then, I don't know. It's just a thing. It's more of a thing. So there we go. Hello, Grant. Hello, Mitchell. How are you guys doing today? All right. Let's get started with this exciting episode about battle flags.
Museum of History Studios. You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. And today we are talking about battle flags, colors, banners, all different types of words, but it's all the same thing. It's a piece of fabric on a pole that a guy has to hold while bullets fly around his head. And I'm sure it makes him a good target. There's many stories of color bearers going down one after another. But it sounds kind of goofy to us today by 21st century standards. Even by 20th century standards, it's a silly thing to be carrying a flag into battle. But it had a very practical purpose long before the Civil War. And we're going to talk a little bit about them today, but specifically at the Battle of Gettysburg. And here to join me is our friend, licensed battlefield guide, Deb Novotny. Oh, Deb, you need the mic in front of you so we can hear you. Sorry, I should have checked. I should have checked that before we started. But Deb Novotny, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's always a pleasure to get on your program, Matt.
I'm glad you say that because it's always a pleasure to have you, and people love when you come on. So we always learn a lot when you're on the show. Now, battle flags. This was your idea, this one here, right? Mm-hmm. But we've been talking about this for a couple of years, though. Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing, folks. An idea starts a few years before you ever see it, and that's just the way it goes here at Addressing Gettysburg because we've got a pretty full pipeline. And so sometimes you just have to wait for the right time. So anyway, why is this your idea? What do you love about battle flags?
Well, it started when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
My first visit to Gettysburg, my dad, on my insistence, brought the family to Gettysburg. We lived south of Pittsburgh, about 35 miles. And I was already hooked into the Civil War by the time I was 10. So we came, I know my dad stopped at this stone building off 30, and this old man got in our car. And he was a licensed battlefield guide that my dad hired. And he told a lot of stories, but the one story that really stuck with this little 10-year-old girl was the story of a man carrying a flag and shaking his fist. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I didn't remember who it was when I was 10, but it was Sergeant Ben Crippen of the 143rd Pennsylvania, and what happened to him. So I don't know. It's just flags. I was already into flags because I actually took a old sheet that my mother gave me, white sheet, and I made a Texas battle flag. Well, it's the one I thought was flying over the Alamo. And of course, it wasn't the Lone Star flag, that their state flag. But I made it, and I put it on a pole, and I carried it around.
Yeah.
9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I'll have you know, don't be ashamed of that, because I was the same way.
You were.
I don't know what it was about flags, but particularly in the context of a battle, that really intrigued me as a kid. And I remember, I'd go play guns with my friends or whatever, and I always brought a flag, and they always thought it was stupid. Like, why are you walking around with a stupid flag and a cap gun? But I would put it on, if we were playing in the boulders and it was, my fort, I'd find a place to stick it and everything. I don't know why, but it meant something to me. It symbolizes something. And even when I was older, in my early 20s, we used to go camping down at Assateague Island. And we were from a town called Parsippany, New Jersey. And we, of course, when you're that age, you get a couple drinks in you and you think you're the funniest group of people that ever walked the face of the planet. And we always said, oh, we're a bunch of pissers. So we called ourselves the Parsippany Pissers. And I bought a Jolly Roger and I put the letters Parsippany Pissers on it. And everywhere we would go, whether we'd go camping or we'd go up to this dude ranch in Milford, Pennsylvania, I'd bring the flag, I'd fly the flag around our campsite or outside our cabin. And then I would paint the name of where it was and the date when we had it. I still have that flag somewhere. I got to find it because, and my friend used to laugh at me. He's like, you and that flag. And I'm like, I don't know. They mean something, but I didn't know what. So, I mean, I get it. I was the same way.
Yeah, when you get older and you delve into the meaning of these flags, it was a lot more than just a flag.
Yeah.
And the more that I tell stories about flags and read the men's stories, the ones who survived, like this one flag that was up in Syracuse, it was in, I don't know, somebody's political office, it's like Secretary of State or something. And this veteran would go there. He was fighting under that flag on Culp's Hill. And he would go look at the flag, and he made a comment, and it's online. I found it online that, this generation, he's writing like 1911. This generation doesn't know what that flag really. They look at it like a rag on a pole, whereas it was the heart of the regiment.
Yep.
It represented the cause they were willing to die for. It also, I found this too, that it represented to the survivors all those who died under that flag. Yeah. Even while the battles were going on, that's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So it had deep meaning.
Where does it come from? What is the purpose of carrying flags? Not just in the Civil War, but the Civil War is not the first war in which units carry flags into action. So it goes way back.
Roman.
Time. Yeah. I mean, probably earlier.
They have maybe flags, but they had
banners. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
You see it in some of the old movies.
With the eagle on top and then a
SPQR.
Yeah.
That thing. So I guess that's where it evolved. But, in battle, it's noisy, it's smoky. And this flag was large, pretty large. Standard size was 6 feet on the pole side, and then 6 feet 6 inches on the fly part. The big, so you could see it. And the staff was supposed to be. This is the standards. Not all of them were, of course, up to standard. It was 9 feet 10 inches.
Why did they just say 10 feet?
I don't know.
Oh, maybe because with the eagle on top, now you've got 10 feet.
No, that counts that.
Oh, that counts that?
Yes, that counts the spear or whatever they had on the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so it wouldn't be exactly the staff part, the wooden part. But if it's 6 feet, let's say it's 10, that means the bearer only has 4 feet to hold.
Yeah. Our flag that's out in the hallway there is same standards, 6 by 6.5, I believe, and 9-foot pole. And you're right, there's very little exposed pole under the flag, but you put it in the baldric and it's up high, And it makes sense. It looks awkward when you're just looking at it leaning up against a tree or something. But then you put it properly on a person, and then it makes all the sense in the world. That thing is huge. And we carry it on our get out of the car tours. And I remember one of our friends, Mike Lentz, he had hurt his ankle, so he couldn't come out with us. But what he did was he knew what the route was going to be, so he shadowed us along the roads in his car. And he couldn't hear anything or whatever, but for whatever he was watching us, and he took some pictures of us crossing the field, and we had about like 90 people that day, and this big flag, and you see that flag. Without the flag, we might have all blended into the scenery, but with that flag, we stand out, and it was pretty cool seeing the pictures too. And he even said this, like it was cool to watch because it gives you an idea of what it might have looked like to see a regiment out in that field or whatever. So for visibility purposes, it makes a lot of sense.
It was usually in the center, and usually the man carrying it was a sergeant, so his title was color sergeant. Then he had corporals under him, usually 9, 10. I've seen different numbers. Was the color guard. Right.
Now, how would they discuss? Okay, so was it always Company F?
C. It's usually C.
C. Where did I get Company F from?
I don't know, but many stories that I don't know if that was standard. Did they always make the color company C company? Or Company C is what they would say. I don't know.
But so how would it be based on when they're marching in column, and would they put the flag in the, where would it go?
It would be in the middle.
The middle,
not
right?
The lead.
Right.
But in the middle.
So then if they had to turn into line, they would be the center company.
Yes.
Okay.
And,
so maybe it just depended on what order they were in the line of march?
Right. Well, yeah, but they put C company in the middle.
Oh, well,
it wasn't. They took turns,
Right.
Nobody wants to eat the dust.
No. Right.
They did that with, I guess, regiments, companies, regiments, brigades.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. You alternate the order so that
Right.
not everybody's the one getting the dust in the face.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I've never found that. Like it had to be Company C.
But there was a color guard that was
Yes.
always the same group of people.
Right.
Okay.
And it was 9 or 10, maybe some had 11, and they would be the bravest men because you basically had to have a death wish. Because in battle, they're always trying to get the guy with the flag, and when he falls, another one picks it up, and some of these units lost all of their color bearers.
Well, he's the best target.
He is, but it's also a great honor. You're a hero if you could capture another flag.
Okay. So you're trying to disable the guy so you can try to get his flag.
Sure.
Was it also used as a means of communication?
Yes, communicating to the men that, okay, when the flag goes forward, everybody aligns on the flag. You might think of Rufus Dawes, for example, the lieutenant colonel of the 6th Wisconsin. He ordered that, align on the colors.
Right.
So they would keep their formation as they're moving quickly from the Chambersburg Pike to the railroad cut. So it's definitely a communication thing because battles are smoky and noisy, and you have to, it's hand signals a lot. An officer with a sword, okay? Think of Armistead with his hat on his sword.
Something you can see.
Right.
Right.
And that flag is definitely visible, just like you said.
Sure. So it's also a symbol of morale for the men.
Sure, it is. Like I said, it's their cause for fighting.
I guess maybe it's like now with football teams, the logo of the football team, and everybody, that's really into football, and you're a big New York Giants fan or something, and that NY or whatever the hell the logo is nowadays. It's a big deal to you.
It is.
Or an Eagles fan or whatever you are. Like that logo is your banner.
It's one of the leftovers from battles.
Yes.
Along with parades. When you see flags being carried by men and women, you see men and women on the other side with rifles.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they plan to shoot anybody.
Right, they're fake,
but that's the carryover because when you're carrying that flag, it's so big you cannot defend yourself. And that's why these other color guard people had to defend you. And
That's interesting because even in like a school marching band, you've got the color guard and they're twirling around fake rifles.
that's right.
Yeah, it's interesting, and they're called the color guard.
They are.
Yet they never carry the American flag. It's always these like sparkly colors.
Well,
but
yeah.
still, that's a holdover from that.
It is.
One of our viewers, Josh, says it started as Company C, but as the war went on and the seniority of captains changed, the color company could change, but every regiment implemented it differently. There you
Okay.
go. Josh is the guy who made our flag, so he knows a lot about
cool.
flags. Yeah, and ours is actually at full size.
Now, is
So-
yours made of?
Now, ours is not made of silk. It's a modern. I forget what he told me it was. I'm sure he'll answer it. But it's a modern fabric that flutters like silk.
Is it nylon?
It's a nylon something. I don't think it's 100% nylon. I'm sure if he's still watching, he'll answer, and I'll get
Okay.
back to you on that one.
All right. Well, they usually were silken.
Right.
You'll hear it silken. That's the U.S. For the Confederates, it was usually homespun
Like wool.
Could you imagine how heavy,
Right.
that is,
In the rain.
and in the rain and all? But
Also, it doesn't sound like that would catch the wind as easily as silk.
no, it doesn't.
Right? So
Yeah.
you have a windless day or a slight breeze on a day.
Right.
It's just kind of hanging there. You probably have to wave it around
Probably.
a
And
lot, right?
they did that,
And they
of
did,
course.
yeah.
4 by 4 feet.
It's nylon taffeta.
Nylon
Yeah.
taffeta.
Taffeta, darling. Yes, taffeta.
Oh.
No, I mean the dress. It's taffeta.
Okay. That's good. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, so go ahead.
So the Confederate flag, they had three national flags during their 4 years of existence. So stars and bars would be the first one. And I have found a lot of visitors think stars and bars is the St. Andrew's cross.
Right.
And it's not.
no.
It actually had thick bars, one red, then a white one, then a red one. Bars, not stripes. So that would be the first national, and I'm sure some of the units here at Gettysburg had that kind of flag. But the Army of Northern Virginia, the famous story about the flags being confused at First Manassas, or
Right.
First Bull Run,
Yeah.
especially if there wasn't any wind, you could misidentify the flags. So that's why the Army of Northern Virginia used the St. Andrew's cross with the 13 stars on it, which people say, weren't there 11 Confederate states? And I said, yes, there were, but there were 2 that the Confederacy were claiming.
Mm.
And it's a little political thing there, but they were like 2 governments in Missouri and Kentucky.
That's right.
Those were the 2.
Yeah.
So that's why there's 13 on that St. Andrew's cross. Now, the Western Confederate Army in the Western Theater had their own battle flag.
Right.
These were never official Confederate flags.
The battle flags.
The battle flag, like the Army of Northern Virginia, it was never an official, but they did put it on a white flag. But then that was a problem.
Yeah, because then it's
it
like we're
looked
surrendering.
Yeah, looked like a surrender flag.
And they went quite a while with that flag,
Yeah,
didn't
well,
they?
that one came into existence. That would be the second national right before the Battle of Gettysburg, because it was a North Carolina regiment, and I'm thinking it is the 55th North Carolina. Somebody can correct me if it isn't. I think it might be a Glenn Tucker High Tide at Gettysburg story, that they actually had that white one with the battle flag in the canton.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But then, almost near the end of the war, they added a vertical red stripe to the end of the flag.
Right.
So it wasn't all white
Right.
if it wasn't blowing in the wind.
Right.
That's the 3. So I don't know how many might have had that second national. But Lee's army generally used the Confederate battle flag that we call Army of Northern Virginia.
Now, that battle flag was a lot of times if you go to a souvenir shop or something, you buy a Confederate flag, it's going to be 3x5.
Yeah.
But that's not what they were carrying. They were carrying 4x4.
4x4.
So it's a square
Yes.
battle flag. Now we were talking about this before, and I said, yeah, isn't the 3x5 the naval ensign or something like that, or naval jack or something? And we weren't really sure. I don't know where I got that idea from, but maybe Josh in the comment section knows that one too, because he's Mr. Flag Guy, so he would know. But yeah, so when you go and you get your Confederate flag and you call it a battle flag and it's 3x5, you're incorrect.
Right.
Yeah. So do we know why they made it a square?
No.
I mean, probably because if they tried to compete with the Union standards, 6x6.5 made out of wool would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right?
It'd probably be more manageable, maybe.
Yeah.
Served the purpose, though. It probably was on a 9 or 10 foot pole.
I was going to say, it's probably still on a tall pole, right?
Right.
Yeah. Which would have looked a little, it wouldn't be as aesthetically pleasing to see.
Maybe.
Because it's really high and then it's just you got 6 feet of bare pole and then a 4-foot flag. But all right, so now battle honors, where they would paint the battles that the flag was in on the flag. Is that something that is new in history to the Civil War, or starting with the Civil War, or is that something that they might have taken from something prior?
I bet Napoleon's time.
Yeah.
Some of his flags might have had battle honors, and maybe even back to the Roman times. They want to be proud of their victories, and I'm not sure.
Well, and now also
the middle stripe of the U.S. flag had the unit quite often.
Right.
The regiment. But the battle honors would go on the stripes.
So,
okay.
So you brought up a good one. On the Union side, you've got the United States flag, battle flag, and you've also got the regimental colors. Right, which would that be strictly the state flag, or would it be something of their own design, or one or the other? How would that work?
They were allowed to have a state flag in the Union Army, so they could have 2 flags. Okay. Not all of them had to, but they were allowed to have one.
All right.
And like Pennsylvania's had this seal of Pennsylvania on it. It was, but it also mentioned their regiment too. On that state flag. Okay,
so it was kind of a hybrid of the state seal maybe, and then whatever design they wanted to put around it.
But it could be the regular state flag too.
Right, okay. Did they have the same thing in the Confederate Army?
Yes.
Okay.
There was a question about what flags did Pickett have?
Mm-hmm.
And my standard, way back, 1959, I guess the book came out, George Stewart's Pickett's Charge. He has an appendix in the back about Pickett's flags. And he said that there was evidence of blue flags. But then there was another source saying that they had red flags. They might have had both.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. But back in 2013, the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, the Museum of the Confederacy in Richmond wanted to put all 15 flags in a special exhibit.
Okay.
It was just going to be for a few months. So, of course, I went down with a couple friends, and they had all but 2, and they were all St. Andrew's crosses.
Okay.
They didn't have 2 flags. One, we're not exactly, it was secreted away. It was not captured during Pickett's Charge. I think it was the 11th Virginia. And, of course, the 28th Virginia, which I have a story about later.
Yes.
They did not have that one, but they did have 13 flags up, captured during Pickett's Charge. Now, they weren't all at the Museum of the Confederacy, I think. They had to take some on loan for that special exhibit.
Right, okay. That I was going to ask because they're not all
They
in
have
their
a lot
possession.
of them.
Yeah.
They have a lot of them, and I don't know if it's on like temporary loan, almost, they really have it. But
Right,
it's
right.
not really theirs.
Right.
It could have been that. They didn't specify, but they had them all nicely exhibited in this room and had other neat things like Armistead's sword and
Yeah.
yeah.
So what then are some of your? Oh, by the way, Josh answered here. He says going back to European armies in the 18th century, usually land/army flags tended to be more squarish in nature, while naval ensigns tended to be more rectangular. So there you go. Okay, so tell us some stories. We love stories. What are some of your favorite battle flag stories regarding or here at the Battle of Gettysburg?
Well, there are quite a few involved on the first day. And for some reason or other, Stone's bucktails have all three regiments that were on the first day, McPherson's farm area, have a good story.
Yeah.
So I guess I would start with the 149th Pennsylvania. They were positioned, the way they were positioned, they were taking artillery fire from the flank. And their flag, of course, was, hey, that's where they are. There's their flag. So that it was kind of like a target that the Confederates could use from Her Ridge. And then, of course, even Oak Hill, because they're right in that, on the Chambersburg Pike. So the colonel, he ordered the color guard to move the flag. The men would go with it. Of course, the man carrying the flag, Sergeant Henry Brehm, and they went across the Chambersburg Pike. That would be to the west of Buford's and Reynolds's monuments.
Right. Okay.
You know where that is. And it drew fire because they thought the regiment was there. But they had like a little barricade, probably that John Buford's cavalrymen had built, made of fences. So they were somewhat protected. But the ruse worked.
Yeah.
Color episode is what it's
Color
called.
episode, right.
Yeah, one of the captains wrote about it, probably gave a speech, and it's been printed. I guess you can even get it online. The color episode of the 149th. Now, eventually what's going to happen is that the Davis's Mississippians, I'm not sure if it was the 2nd or 42nd Mississippi, they saw the flag, and they're making a run for it, and they want to capture it. And there was actually a fight in this little barricade with the U.S. guys and the Confederates. So I think the flag was captured.
Right. The Confederates, it was a handful of them that, if I recall, like crawled up.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't just go marching up.
Yeah.
Like they crawled up to sneak up on the guys.
Wheat, I think it was.
Yeah.
Wheat or something there. Yeah. And they pounced on him. And Brehm did get away, but he's mortally wounded. He won't survive. A lot of the color guard was either killed or wounded. And I think both the state flag and the U.S. flag were captured that day then. So, and if you look at the 149th Pennsylvania monument, there's a man sitting, he's got his rifle in his hand, and he's looking in a strange direction.
Yeah.
You know, he's not looking to the west down the Chambersburg Pike. And my fellow colleague, guide, Rich Core, believes he's actually looking at where that spot was.
Right. It makes sense.
Could be.
That's what's kind of cool about all that stuff.
Yeah, because we know, how many feet, how many feet west and how many feet north. And because this is all recorded. And I'm surprised they didn't put a little marker out there.
Yeah. Maybe they didn't have the money. So before you get into another flag story, there's a question I have here for you. Besides units, regiments using flags for the purposes we listed before, flags were also used to communicate over long distances with signal stations. How many signal? I mean, we know there was the famous signal station on Little Round Top, which plays a role in the story of the fight for Little Round Top. But how many other signal stations did we have here? Do you know?
There's a good article, and it's probably based on a book maybe that the man wrote, and I can't remember his name now, but it was in Blue and Gray, I think, magazine, about the signal stations at Gettysburg. And if I remember correctly, there was one near Meade's headquarters, maybe about where Meade's equestrian statue is. like where the speech monument is in the cemetery, the Gettysburg Address Monument has a nice bust of Lincoln on
Yeah.
it. That was one. Powers Hill had another one. And Jack's Mountain, which is
Right.
west of the Confederates, but I guess far enough west because it's beyond Fairfield.
It's almost near Emmitsburg.
Yeah, they could communicate with the northern end of Catoctin Mountain. You can walk there. It's called Indian Lookout.
Okay.
Go down to the Emmitsburg, the grotto,
Uh-huh.
up on top of the mountain,
Yep.
and the trail starts there. It's steep.
I bet.
And I did it twice.
Did you?
On a clear day. Wow. You go to the north end of it's like a rock outcropping, the north end of Catoctin Mountain, and that was a Union signal station that could communicate with the Jack's Mountain.
That's amazing. Do we know where the station was on Jack's Mountain? Do we have like a spot?
I've
I'm sure
never-
somebody's house is on it now.
Never heard it. I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know if it's in woods or...
Because, my friend Jake and I, it was his idea to do this, but I really wanted to get into it. But we were like, we'll never get permission from the park to do this. We wanted to go on Little Round Top and have, with a laser, see if we could communicate with a laser receiver. I don't know. He's all into that nerdy stuff. I really like the idea, so I don't know how it would work, but communicate with Jack's Mountain from there. And I said, why don't we just, because we were like, we couldn't believe that they could communicate that way. And I was like, well, yeah, of course you could do it with a laser. Like, why don't we try to do it with flags and telescopes? Like, that's what they did, right? So why don't we get two guys with a flag and a telescope on one, and we go to a spot on Jack's Mountain, see if we can find each other. I mean, that's the other thing. How do you find where it is? Like that's fascinating to me. So then the Jack's Mountain one would relay a message further into Maryland until it got to a telegraph.
Actually, when I did go, and I can't remember what year it was I was not as old as I am now. I don't think I'll ever be able to go up because it's very steep.
Yeah.
But it's a nice path. It's
Yeah.
a nice trail that will take you to that rock outcropping.
Uh-huh.
I had binoculars, but I could see the 44th New York on Little Round Top,
Really?
and I think the Pennsylvania Monument.
With like regular old binoculars or those
Yeah.
really long ones?
No, just regular
Regular old.
binoculars. That's all I had.
Okay.
So they have telescopes, like you said. So
Yeah.
they could, I think Little Round Top could communicate directly with that Catoctin Mountain one. And then they had another relay all the way to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
There were other stations that they...
Sugarloaf Mountain, another one down
Yes.
in, right? They have one there,
Yes.
which that makes sense because you could see that thing from Mars. That's huge.
Yes.
But that's amazing to me that they were able to do that. Did the Confederates have here at Gettysburg? Did they have anything like that?
I've never heard of any Confederate. I don't think they had the advantage points, the
It's true.
high ground.
Would if they had the vantage points, did they have such units with them up here?
With them, E.P. Alexander, got into that early in the war. He's
He's the one that sent the message about your flank being turned, right? At Manassas?
Manassas, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever read that they have like a signal corps, like general or officer.
I don't think I have either, but I'm not a guide, so I figured.
I don't know all the answers there, Matt. I
Figured you
don't
might have heard.
remember. I don't remember hearing of it. They use torches, at night.
Yes. Years ago, I think it was 2018, they, during the anniversary days, Angie Atkinson and, remember Jared?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forget his last name. Begins with an F.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He was a seasonal.
Yes.
I love Jared. I can't believe I forget what his last name is, but it's F. Foos? Jared Foos? I don't remember. Anyway, great kid. And they did a program on the Union signal stations, and there was one, but we were at Meade's headquarters, but there was another one set up on Little Round Top, and they waited till nightfall and used lanterns.
Ooh.
And it was the coolest thing I ever saw. It was also a little eerie because you first of all, the lantern light on Little Round Top, just that distance alone, which isn't terribly far, but to the naked eye, a lantern, it's like the size of like an eraser head on a pencil, right? It's really small, this tiny little light, and you gotta like go look for it. And then once you find it, though, it's this. It's like a disembodied head floating around. Like you just see this light moving in these weird patterns, and then we're sitting here with the receiving end of it, and so they're looking through the binoculars and they're yelling out what it is, and then sending something back. So you get to see how it works both ways. I just thought that was the coolest thing. I wish the park would do more stuff like that, but we're not allowed out there at night anymore. But if they would just break the rules during the anniversary days so that we can see stuff like that, that would be so great. Because that really, it blew my mind. It's such a simple thing, but it blew my mind. And I just wish more people could see stuff like that. So yeah, the lantern thing at night is really impressive. All right, so we've belabored the Signal Corps point enough. Give us another story that you like about, no, not Jared Frederick, Eric. Thank you, though. I know Jared Frederick. His book is right behind Deb's head. I could see his name there.
Can't think of it.
No, he was a seasonal ranger here.
Okay, then another one would be the flag of the 150th Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Bucktails.
Okay.
And they are in retreat. They're heading down into town. Of course, they lost a lot of color bearers out there at McPherson's farm because that's where their position was in the fight of day one. And they were at the intersection of Washington and High Street. And this was witnessed actually by one of the Powers sisters.
Okay.
I think it might have been Alice. It's either Alice or Jenny. That the color bearer, and I've heard different accounts who it was, that there's this Joseph Gutilius.
Gutilius, what a name.
Gutilius, yeah, I love that name. He was a corporal, that he was carrying the flag through the town in the retreat. And I think my colleague, good friend Roy Frampton, believes it was Gutilius. I don't know if he was slightly wounded or just tired, from all the fighting, but he sat down on somebody's porch at that intersection of West High and South Washington Street.
Okay.
And then a lieutenant from, his name is, what is it now? Harney? No. You don't use these names all the time. But
right.
He was a lieutenant.
A lieutenant is good enough.
He was from North Carolina. Okay. I think it might have been Scales Brigade. But anyway, he went up and he grabbed the flag. He captured the flag from this poor guy who's tired out or wounded. And I think Gutilius was killed. But I don't know who killed him, but he was killed. He's buried in the National Cemetery in the Pennsylvania plot. His name is on the stone. And then right away, the lieutenant was mortally wounded.
Serves him right.
Well, his dying wish was that flag be sent to the President of the Confederacy. So they honored his dying wish, and Jefferson Davis got it.
Huh.
And then that was July 1st, 1863. Jump ahead to April 1865, and Jefferson Davis is in the Episcopal Church, and he's, I guess, attending Sunday services, and a Confederate officer comes in, taps him on the shoulder, and says, "You better get out of town. Grant is going to take Richmond today."
Mm-hmm.
So he hurried home. He told his wife, get some things, packed, and they take off, and the U.S. cavalry catches him down in Georgia. They look through his baggage, and they see the flag of the 150th Pennsylvania.
Now, that's amazing. You would think, being the president of the Confederate States, that you would have gotten lots of battle trophies from the soldiers.
Maybe, but, I think it's August 63 and I forgot the name of the newspaper, but I have it. It's you can find it online. It's Jefferson Davis writing to Zebulon Vance, the governor of North Carolina. This is the month after the battle, that there's the bravery of the North Carolinians, and he will cherish this flag
Okay.
The rest of his life, something like, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why he took it.
It was particularly special. Yeah, there was something.
So, of course, the 150th Pennsylvania had to get another flag.
Right.
And I remember when I first moved out here and became a guide, I went up to the Capitol building in Harrisburg, and they had behind glass the battle flags just on the poles.
Yeah.
This is before the preservation business that's happened since then. But I noticed the 150th had 2 flags because they were labeled with paper on the staff. They had 2 flags.
Right.
So they got that one
They got it back.
Because at the end of the war, of course, all the flags that the Confederates had captured had to be returned.
Have you? I'm assuming you have been up there to the collection.
Oh, yes.
Since they did the preservation. Mm-hmm. Is it hard to get in and see anything?
Well, we went on a Saturday, and they usually don't work on Saturdays. But the person who got us up there, Randy Dreas, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I know Randy. Yeah.
Yeah, he takes up a group every year.
Okay.
And he asked us what flags would we like them to pull out.
Nice.
Because they have them in these nice cases now, and they have all the staffs lined up like they're...
But they're not on the staff.
No, they're not on the staffs. They're preserved, and they flat out.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about them when they were behind that glass because they were, they could paper thin.
Yeah.
After time.
Yeah.
So that preservation, that I am grateful that somebody had the gumption to get that preservation.
You see these old pictures of Civil War soldiers holding their regiment's flags, and it's just tattered rags on the staff. Obviously, those would eventually, I would imagine, be replaced. They're not carrying one strand of fabric into battle, right? Who the hell knows who you are? But is that what they have, or do they have some like that up there?
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
Wow.
But
I got to get up there and see that.
Sometimes they have them, I don't know if it's painted, but what would be there.
Yeah.
But you can see just the strips. Yeah.
You mentioned before, what the hell's his name? I just lost it. The 26th North Carolina Colonel.
Henry King Burgwin.
And that, now those are more color bearer stories, but I think it bears repeating.
Oh, yeah.
Go into that. Tell us that story.
Well, the 26th went into action late in the day on the 1st of July, about 3 o'clock or so, and most of the action against the 24th Michigan of the Iron Brigade, it only lasted about 30 or 40 minutes. But the 26th North Carolina lost, I think 14 carried the flag. And the last one to carry it was Burgwin. And he went down mortally wounded, and the flag kind of draped around him as he's going down. And, of course, bloodstains. There are bloodstains on these flags.
Yeah.
And that's another flag that I would like to see in person. They might have it in the State Museum. That's where you'd probably look. Or the Capitol, Raleigh.
So you say they might. And so my next question is going to be then, so I was going to say, so we don't know where every battle flag is, which obviously is the case. I don't know how they wouldn't have been preserved by the veterans all over the years, and then eventually the state historical societies or whatever. But one flag story that everybody loves, and actually one of the people that wrote in, what I'll do is I'll ask his question now.
Okay.
So that he doesn't feel gypped here. Dear Matt, West Virginia became the 35th state on June 20th, 1863. Most regiments carried 33 or 34 star flags at the time. I've heard a story that during the Gettysburg campaign, the 7th West Virginia 2nd Corps Regiment stole a star from another regimental flag, supposedly an Indiana national, and sewed it to the 7th West Virginia's national flag, so it had 35 stars. Has Deb ever heard that story? Chuck Critchfield. P.S. I believe the story to be false. So what do you say, Deb? What say you?
I've heard just recently that people are questioning that story.
we are in a period of questioning.
I know.
Do you notice that?
Yes.
We question everything that we've been led to believe about the Civil War and the battle, which I don't think is unhealthy.
Well,
but
there
I don't
are
know.
Legends, you
Yeah.
know, and some are oral tradition, so it's not kind of hard to prove it
Right.
somehow.
There's nothing wrong with a legend either.
Yes, I have heard that story.
Yeah.
Many years ago. And it came from a fellow guide who went to WVU. He went to West Virginia, and he saw it in a high school textbook. That story was printed in a high school textbook that they were using, I guess, in Morgantown area. I've never seen it any other place. So, you know, two good sources is what you're supposed to have before you write or say anything.
Right.
But you asked, and he'd asked, so I will tell you this. First of all, West Virginia, and boy, West Virginians know this, was admitted to the Union June 20th, 1863. That's just before the Battle of Gettysburg, a couple of weeks before the battle. And they would be the 35th state. Now, the 34th state was Kansas, and it was admitted in January 1861. So that's just before the war started. So I think most of the flags probably did have the 34 stars on it, including the 7th West Virginia. But this is kind of funny. Back when the National Cemetery was part of the tour route, would always spend about middle of the tour, about 10 minutes in there. And they had an old, it was called the Mission 66 Waysides. There are very few of them still out there. One that a lot of people like to stop at is on East Confederate. It has the fishhook maps.
Yeah.
They're 3D. They were kind of 3D.
Yeah.
In fact, I used that one at least 4 times when I had visually impaired people on the tour.
Because they could feel it.
And they could feel the fish hooks
okay.
curling around each other.
It's clever.
Well, they had one right where the Soldiers' National Monument is. And that probably was put up around 1966 or something like that. I mean, it's the early days. And they had all the states, the 18 northern states, and where they were. So if you wanted to go visit that section, 18, northern states. And I looked at that, and I probably took a slide of it, if I have it somewhere. It said Virginia. It said Virginia as one of the 18 northern states. Well, what it really was West Virginia.
Yeah.
But here's the catch. And this is, I think, still to this day, if we get another state, they can be admitted any time during the year, but they don't get the star on the flag until the 4th of July.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot.
And the battle was July 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
So technically, they shouldn't have had any 35-star flags.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And they do now have another wayside for the cemetery, and it's at the Tawnytown Road gate. And it says West Virginia on it.
Yeah.
But somebody was a stickler for the truth
Yeah.
when they made those earlier waysides. But this I don't know about the timing, but according to Charlie Fennell, who relayed the story to me because I never saw it in print in that high school textbook, it was the evening of the 1st of July.
Okay.
This is Carroll's Brigade. So they're Hancock's Corps. They would be somewhere on the north end of Cemetery Ridge, Ziegler's Grove area. It was nighttime, and the flag bearer of the 7th West Virginia went over to the flag of the 14th Indiana, cut out one of the stars, took it back to his flag, and sewed it on one of the stripes. So supposedly the only Union regiment that went into the Battle of Gettysburg with a 35-star flag was the 7th West Virginia. I just imagine that guy, the color bearer of the 14th Indiana, waking up and looking at it saying, where did that hole come from?
Right. Yeah. So do we have the 7th West Virginia's flag?
I tell you what, I've given that homework to at least 5 people
No one can find it.
from West Virginia, and I've never heard anything back from them.
Really?
Whether they saved the flag, but that would be some proof, wouldn't it be?
You know, I have a friend who's from West Virginia, and he's very proud of his state and being from West Virginia. A lot of West Virginians are. It's a very rare thing that you see these days. I'm from New Jersey. I'm ashamed. I'm not proud. I'm ashamed to have been from New Jersey. I left it as soon as I could, twice. But he's very proud of it. And here's my theory, my conspiracy theory. They know where it is, and there isn't a 35th star. But they like the legend. They like the myth.
Yeah.
And so they hide it deep in an old coal mine that is no longer in use, okay, under guard by descendants of the Hatfields or whoever was the West Virginia side, okay, and they'll never let us know because then we'll stop talking about West Virginia. I think that's what's going on.
Sounds
because
good to me.
Do we know the 14th Indiana's flag?
Well, that's another proof.
Right.
I mean, these flags were so tattered, like you said before,
Sure.
that a missing star could have been a piece of shrapnel.
Well, that's true.
taken out.
That's true.
But I think the best thing is to find that 7th West Virginia flag.
No accounts from people in either regiment
Not that I know
that we
of.
can find.
Not
You would think that maybe someone would have written down, but again, if the flag is full of holes, maybe you're not going to notice that missing star.
Yeah. So,
All right. Well, that's interesting there.
a mystery of history.
A mystery, right?
I like them.
History's mysteries. I love those. Josh says the 35th star of the 7th West Virginia is a myth. And then he says, no one but Charlie has ever seen any evidence of that story. Maybe Charlie made it up. Wait, I'm revising my conspiracy theory. Charlie made it up.
Well,
That's what it is.
Charlie does like to tell us
He
a
does.
good story.
Yeah, he does.
And,
But here's the thing, and you raise a good point, is no one else had a 35th star flag. Now, I could understand West Virginia boys being proud that they were among the counties that weren't dopey enough to go with the Confederacy, right? And so they would want to memorialize that moment or whatever. But it doesn't matter. I mean, you're in the middle of, especially if it happened on the night of the 1st, like battle is underway. Are you worrying about that? Adding a flag or a star to your flag? I don't know. We'll see. You know what? Maybe. Let's see. Eric says, I am ashamed to be friends with someone from New Jersey. Thank you, Eric. Okay. So another story that I like, since we're over in that area of the field, let's move over a little bit more to Culp's Hill.
mm-hmm.
And there's a really good story that everybody loves to tell. The regiment is leaving me right now.
149th
New York. Right. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Tell us that one.
Well, you know what? I'm not sure if it's July 2nd or July 3rd. I can't remember that. But there's a lot of bullets whizzing around, and the flagstaff was hit so many times in this one spot that it shattered. The flagstaff shattered. And Color Sergeant William Lilly is the flag bearer. And of course, you don't want to have your flag down.
Right.
That's a sign of surrender.
Right.
So he took some leather straps, like from a knapsack, and some wooden splints, maybe from an ammo box, and he splinted it where it was broken and stuck it back in the earthworks there.
While the battle is continuing.
Yes, and it's memorialized on the monument.
Yeah.
Because there's a bas relief of him based on Edwin Forbes' drawing of him doing it. So Forbes he was an embedded
reporter,
artist,
yeah.
So he heard the story from somebody, and he did that. So they did put it in bronze. And when I was doing some research for a Zoom presentation on flag stories, I didn't know this, but they saved the staff.
Yeah.
It is in Syracuse. And I took a vacation in early October and specifically went to Syracuse to the old courthouse. It's their current courthouse, but it's the fourth one. And they have the staff behind glass.
Huh.
It's there.
Huh.
And I took a picture of it.
Ah, nice.
So, will it show if I...
Yeah, will you send it to me later? I'll edit it in.
I'll
We
put
could
it
show
in.
the people.
But there it is if you're
Yeah.
watching live.
Yeah.
The splintered staff. They've got the whole staff under glass, but that's a close-up right there of the...
So what's amazing to me, and again, I'm going back to what I was saying before about the 20th and 21st century view of a flag in a battle. It seems insane, right? There's chaos, there's lead and iron flying everywhere, blood splattering, guts spilling. I mean, it's a hellscape, and this guy takes the time to figure out how to fix the staff so he could get the flag back up. And no one is accusing him of being a shirker or a coward or anything because he's, not fighting. They all understand the importance of what he's doing and having that flag up there. Where I don't know, I mean, I haven't been in modern military situations and combat or anything, but I just can't imagine the modern sensibility is putting up with a guy doing that without giving him a hard time for being some kind of a pussy or a coward or whatever.
William Lilly was really, he does not survive the war. When the 12th Corps is moved to the Western Theater, he's killed, mortally wounded, I should say, at the Battle of Wauhatchie, Tennessee. And the story about him is that he was being taken, I guess, in an ambulance back, and there was a Confederate also there. Now that was a fall battle, and it was cold, and somebody gave a blanket to Sergeant Lilly, and here the Confederate, Lilly sees him kind of shivering, he shared his blanket with that Confederate. And he's buried in Syracuse. When he did die, they got him back home, and he's really a hero to the people up in Syracuse. They have a beautiful Civil War monument in one of the squares, and it's it's not a bas relief, it's 3D of him mending the flag. Mm-hmm. Not exactly like we have but it's close.
Yeah.
But he's fixing the flagpole.
Yeah.
As one of the scenes on their Civil War monument.
If you're watching live and you have any questions, 717-420-1978 is the phone number. Give us a call. Ask Deb. We'd like to have you included on the show. All right. Now, another one that is still controversial to this day, started at Pickett's Charge, and now is being fought in Minnesota.
Yes. Yes.
What is this story?
Okay. This is the story. I guess when Pickett's men, are up at the wall and there's men moving from the south, like the Hall-Harrow line, one of the units that was there was the 1st Minnesota. What you usually hear with the 1st Minnesota is their big charge, their gallant charge on the second day, near sunset, when they lost 82%, all killed and wounded, holding back Wilcox's Alabama Brigade. But the third day, I think, is just as interesting because they will move out against, I guess, would be Kemper's brigade. And I've heard different stories about this, too, that this private, Marshal Sherman, will capture the flag of the 28th Virginia. Now, there's another guy who claimed he captured it, and so there is a little fuzziness with this. But anyway, Sherman was given credit for it. He did receive the Medal of Honor before the war was over. I believe he got it. He earned it. But the flag was sent out to St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay.
Now, in 1905, it was before that, in the 1880s, Grover Cleveland, President Cleveland, ordered all captured Confederate flags returned. And, of course, that really disturbed the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic, the Union veterans, even that didn't belong to that. So they rescinded that. Cleveland
Why did he want that?
sended that.
Was
It
there?
was a time of reconciliation.
Oh, okay.
This
So it
is
was
20
just,
years after the war.
okay. Gotcha.
So anyway, in 1905, Theodore Roosevelt ordered all captured Confederate flags that were designated on their flag given back to the state of the designation. Minnesota didn't do it.
Good.
They defied Theodore Roosevelt,
Good.
Teddy Roosevelt, the Rough Rider. And then in, I guess almost every year, the governor of Virginia kept asking the governor of Minnesota to give him that flag. And you might remember the wrestler Jesse Ventura.
Of course. Yeah.
He was the governor.
Yeah.
Well, he had words saying to the effect was, it was won in battle,
Right.
and we're not going to give it back.
Yeah. You're crazy. He's a weird one.
Yeah. So now let's go to 2013
But he was right, though, by the way.
for that special exhibition.
Mhm.
28th Virginia is one of the captured flags that the Museum of the Confederacy wanted all of them. They didn't know, I think, where the 11th Virginia was because it was in private hands. It was secreted away. It was not captured.
Okay.
So, to this day, I don't know. Maybe Wayne Motts knows where it is because he's done a lot of research on Pickett's charge. I'll have to ask him next time I see him. But they asked, we just want it for this special exhibit, Minnesota. Let us have the 28th Virginia's flag. And Minnesota said, no way. You're not going to give it back.
Good
If
for
we
you,
give
Minnesota.
It to you,
Yep.
you're not going to give it back.
Very smart.
So I had a party from Minnesota, and I told them this story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And this lady said, I know about that flag. I know it's at the State Museum, and I'm a friend of the curator of the museum.
Really?
And so I said, well, would you find out for me? I'm an old teacher. I give homework. Will you find out for me, is it on display? Because I will definitely go back to St. Paul because I've been there once.
Right.
They have the flag of the first Minnesota. They did at the time anyway, in the Capitol under the dome.
Right.
But I would like to see that flag of the 28th Virginia. She went back home.
I'd love to see that.
She did her homework.
Yeah?
She found out they do have it.
Really?
They do not have it on display. They don't
Smart.
trust Virginia.
To not
The
send
Virginia
somebody over
might
there.
sneak into that museum and get it.
Uh-huh.
But because she was a friend,
Oh.
she got a picture of it for me that I carry
Oh,
on
yeah, look
my
at that.
course. And
That's
it does
pretty
say 28th Virginia, and I'll get this to you too. So
Yeah,
you can
yeah, please do.
edit into it.
Yeah. That's pretty neat. So with the what I find so funny about that whole story is that it won't end. Are you aware of any other similar stories? Because they can't all have been returned to their rightful states, right?
No, some of them are in private collections. You know, the park has one. I don't know if it's their permanent. It's a North Carolina flag in the museum.
Mm-hmm.
They have, as a sample, you know, they have a Confederate on one side and they alternate. They do get it from Harrisburg, the preserved flags. I know the
okay.
first one they had on display was the 150th Pennsylvania's.
Okay.
So I would tell people the story out on the field and tell them, now if you're going in the museum, make sure you see the 150th. Then they had the 149th, and I'm not certain which one they have now.
Which Union flag is in there now?
Yeah,
You mean?
I think it might still be the 149th Pennsylvania.
And where do they keep? Do they keep that in a special place, or is that back in the gallery?
It's in the gallery.
It's in the gallery.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the first rooms. You know when they.
Okay.
I'm not.
I have to get back in there
Go
anyway.
back in. It might be the first day room.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
They have a room for July 1, July
Right.
2, July 3.
All right. Those are all the ones that I remember. You have any more?
Did we answer? Oh,
No, we're gonna get to those in a
there
second, but I
was-
want to know what you
yeah,
like to tell.
The one down, it says couple Confederate stories down in the Devil's Den
Sure.
area. There was the first Texas is part of Robertson's Old Hoods Texans. They're going to be charging kind of like through the triangular field, the first Texas, and they see Smith's guns at Devil's Den, so they're eyeing them. Well, Sergeant George Brannard was carrying the flag of the first Texas. Now, he's about 20 or 21 years old.
Okay.
And he sees the color bearer. It's one of Benning's Georgia regiments. I want to say 15th. I'm not positive of that. But anyway, he sees them. And these are both probably 20, 21-year-olds. And George Brannard said, let's race. Let's see who gets their flag to the rocks first.
Oh, Jesus.
Talk about during a battle and what you're doing.
Exactly.
So Brannard won. He got his flag of the first Texas there. And I can't remember, there's a story with the first Texas flag that Louis Wigfall was the first colonel.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes a senator, I think. He's not at Gettysburg. But his wife donated the flag, her wedding gown, which was probably silk.
Makes sense.
I think it was a Texas state flag. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not sure which flag George Brannard had, but there is the artist down there who did. Who's the artist down there? Wode.
Wode. Yeah.
However you pronounce Alfred.
W-A-U-D.
Yeah, W-A-U-D. He has a drawing, and it used to be on a wayside at Devil's Den, and I think it's been replaced. But he has the rocks, the Sickles' men starting to retreat away from Devil's Den. But he has a flag bearer right on top of the rock.
Yeah.
But he is holding the St. Andrew's battle flag.
Right.
Well, Brannard supposedly did that, and he is either knocked unconscious by concussion or he falls. He falls down, and then he's killed.
Yeah.
Well, he came to, it was one of those deals of, he's out for a while.
Right.
And he wanted to know where was his flag.
Of course.
He wanted his flag back. They didn't want to give up their flag. Sometimes when they're dying, they're still holding on to that flagpole.
Yeah.
Staff.
Well, yeah, you don't want to lose it. I mean, think about it. You don't go into battle carrying a musket. You have nothing that you can do against the enemy. The only thing you can do is for your men, for your comrades. And that is to hold on to that heart and soul of the regiment.
And it's a proud thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
But there is another story. This is the other Confederate story I wanted to tell you. There was a private by the name of William A. Fletcher.
Okay.
And he was from the Texas regiment. I only had 3. I should remember the numbers. But anyway, the officer of his regiment asked him to carry the flag. And he said, I know the drill with my musket. I don't know the flag carrying drill. And he refused to carry the flag.
Yeah.
I don't think it was because he wasn't brave. I mean,
Right.
He does go into combat and all, but he wrote a really cool little book. You can get a lot of these stories in regimental histories and their own personal memoirs,
This might not be a fair question to ask because this isn't the focus of today's show, but are you aware of any statistics as far as what the casualty rate was amongst Civil War color bearers?
I've never seen any, but I would guess very high.
I mean, right? It would have to be.
Very high.
I don't know how it couldn't be 100%.
Yes.
Do you know of a color bearer who, through his entire term of service, had the flag and didn't get, let's say, mortally wounded or killed or severely wounded? Like maybe he got a scratch here and there, but was able to go back into service. Have you heard of such a story?
No.
No. I mean,
I think they're rare.
It has to be.
There are some.
I mean, if you look at the 26 North Carolina story, was it 13? 14, including the colonel, in a matter of minutes, right?
Right.
I mean, it had to be
Less
minutes.
than an hour.
Less than an hour.
And the 24th Michigan, on the back of their monument, they say 5 color bearers were killed and the rest were wounded.
Yeah. And we don't know how many the rest are.
Well, it's probably 5 if they had 10 total. But that's what's on their monument that
Right.
they wanted us to know.
If they had 10 total, but if all 10 of them were knocked out, now you have to just get into regular rank and file, right?
Somebody will probably step up.
Yeah. It's such a crazy thing to me. I mean, you had to have, as they say, balls of steel, because to know, especially, again, I always say this, the first time, you don't know anything. After that first battle, you've seen enough to know. You should have seen enough to know, I don't want any more of this, right? But for whatever reason, you can't get out of it. But with the color bearers, you have to see what happens to them.
It's kind of status.
Oh, sure.
You are the bravest person of that whole regiment.
Yeah.
If you're in the color guard.
I mean,
And
obviously,
They took it personally. Here's another story that I really like that I never knew until recently. And it's 13th Massachusetts.
Okay.
That would be off the Mummersburg Road, so you're in Robinson Avenue.
Right.
There's a color bearer holding the flag there, and it's actually Sergeant Roland Morris. I don't know when he got the flag, but it's before Gettysburg, and he's coming up with his unit through Maryland, and they're going right by this place, this farm that he had met these people, maybe marching around before in the previous march. So he left the ranks, and he went to say hi and just visit for a little while. The colonel found out about it. He didn't ask permission to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The colonel took away the flag from Sergeant Morris. He was so upset. He was at the point of tears just before the battle started. He wanted his flag back. And he was kind of like, everybody in the regiment loved him. I mean, on these tiring marches, you can imagine how depressed these guys are. He was telling jokes.
Yeah.
I mean, he was trying to lift the spirits. So the colonel relented and said, okay, you can take the flag into the battle. Where that monument is today is where Sergeant Morris was mortally wounded.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, he's a target.
Sure, of course.
So the colonel said that a couple of the guys could take him back to the Elias Sheed's house.
Okay.
We know that as the Carrie Sheed's house.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
her dad.
Yeah.
And it's got the shell in it,
Yep.
And that he died there. And this is not the end of the story.
Okay.
There's some homework coming.
Okay, let me get my pen.
Because in Bill Frazanito's first book, A Journey in Time, he pointed out there's the Sheeds house. It's a panoramic view back toward the town, so you can see the Sheeds house. And there's a orchard behind the house.
Yeah.
Toward the college,
Yeah.
toward the railroad tracks. And it's also on the Elliott burial map. You know how he marked these are Union dead. But there's also one, and you can see it in the photograph, and Bill brought it out. There's a single grave all by itself.
Now I have to look this up. Hold on
I
a second.
think-
And callers, stay on the line. I'll get to you right after this. All right. So let's see. Let's do Gettysburg town Civil War photo. Or who did that photo? Was that a Brady photo or?
Yes.
Okay, let me just do that.
Yeah, it's Brady.
Gettysburg Matthew Brady photo. Okay. Of course, it's wait, no, here it is. Okay, good. All right, let's see. Let's pull this up and see what we can see. And okay, now where am I looking for this grave?
Well, it would be in the foreground,
Okay.
and not in the orchard, just on this side of the orchard. Do you see the orchard tree?
I see the orchard. Yep.
It's just a little white spot, but it's definitely big enough for a grave.
And it would be the camera side of the house. In other
Yes.
words, between the
Yes.
camera and the house.
Between the camera.
All right.
and the house.
This one might be cropped too much for me to be able to find out. Let me find another version of it somewhere here, maybe. I don't know. Okay, I don't want to waste too much of the listeners' time here looking this up because I'm sure this is very exciting for them, especially because they can't see what I'm looking at. I mean, the edited version will show this, but I can't do anything here because I don't have somebody in the back. All right, yeah. No, well, okay, this looks like it's the full frame shot, but I am not seeing it. I don't see it, but okay, so go
It's
ahead.
A journey in time, and it is because in his description he talks about that possibly being a grave. So I went to find a grave. Roland Morris, I put in, died in 1863. Says Forest Hill Cemetery, Jamaica Plain, which is outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Then down below, it's giving his exact place in the cemetery. Then it says, no marker. There it is. Okay. Find a grave.
Uh-huh.
That's him,
Right.
colorized.
Yeah.
And then it says, no marker.
Okay.
I even have Boy Scouts from near Boston. I said, wouldn't that be a nice Eagle Scout project to get him one of the Veteran Administration free markers that all veterans have? He died carrying the flag of his country. That was a couple of years ago, and that's, according to Find a Grave, he still has no marker. I can't change this because somebody else put it in Find a
Right.
Grave.
Right.
Um,
So do you think that he
I
was
think that
buried
him.
there originally
And
and
I
then
think
moved
they
to the
marked
cemetery?
I think they marked it, and I think his relatives must have come down
Okay.
and found him.
Yeah.
You know, for a first day battle grave, a lot of them are not identified because they were under the sun maybe a few days and
Right.
couldn't be identified.
And it wasn't their comrades
the
who were burying them, and
Confederates
the Confederates got
might
through
have.
them. Yeah.
So
What a mess.
anyway, Roland Morris deserves a tombstone.
Sure.
So that's the homework. Get him one.
Get him one in.
Yeah.
Sure, we
we?
could. Yes, we could do that.
Well, you'd get an A+ from this old teacher if you helped out Roland Morris.
All right.
Roland Morris, that's him.
I'll get on that.
He looks like a neat guy.
Roland
And
Morris.
the statue that on the 13th Massachusetts is Morris. I mean, he does have a mustache. It doesn't look exactly like him. But I've seen that same pose
Now,
other battlefields like Antietam.
yeah, I'm trying to picture in my head the 13th map. I mean, I know they're down on that
Yes.
squiggly road, right?
Yes.
But wouldn't they have been
He's
up
holding
against?
out a sword.
Yeah, okay.
Not out yet, but he's holding the flag, so the flag is in it.
I know. Yes.
And they were on the flank.
Right.
And they think the Confederates might have been at the McLean.
And then wouldn't that have been what is it? Blackford's sharpshooters.
Sharpshooters, but it could be
So,
skirmishers.
No wonder. No wonder
Could
he
have
went
been
down.
O'Neill's men. We don't.
It was a
know
mess.
who
Yeah.
shot him.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Gravestone. We're gonna try to do this.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
We've got a caller on the air. I believe this caller. He says, "I'd like to talk about ice fishing in the Caribbean. It could only be our friend Grant, who actually is a goofball, but he's also smart, and he calls from Australia. So this is a listener from Australia. Hey, Grant, how are you?
Hey, Jim, how you going?
I'm going well. What's going on? What is your flag question?
Oh, wait, wrong show, sorry.
I like to let him hang
Hello?
there for a bit. Yeah. All right, come on. Just stop wasting my time here. This isn't Thursday's show. This is a very serious show.
Well, I just have to say to Deb that I really enjoyed her show about the Powers Girls that you did a while back.
Ah.
That was a very good show.
That's what she said, correct?
Powers.
Yeah, I know.
I
Who
did
hosted that show, man?
Yeah.
A while ago.
What, Grant?
Who hosted that show?
That would have been Bethany and Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, they're so good, those two. They know how to host a show, don't you think?
They do. They learn from the best. That's why they were my number twos for so long. They learned from the best. So Grant, what else? You enjoyed that? Go ahead.
Yes, my question's about the flags. I was wondering. I'm sorry if you'd already gotten to this, but how would they be made, the flags themselves? And that's my first question. And then secondly, how would they go about getting them replaced? Would they be proud of like the damage to a certain degree of like battle after battle, that they would just keep it in a certain state of disrepair? Or would they want to get a fresh flag to replace it? How does that work?
That's a great
That's a
question.
very good question.
It's very good, Grant, because a lot of people think you're stupid, but that was a really good question.
I tell you what, in the beginning of
you,
the in the beginning of the war, 1861, it was a big deal for the ladies of where your unit was from to sew a flag for you.
Right.
You know, with the specifications. Of course, they didn't have. This is really strange that the U.S. government did not have a pattern for how the stars were to be. They are all different. They're different. You know, I see there's one hanging up here in Matt's office here.
That's right.
And it's in two circles, and there's 4 on the corners. I've seen that quite a number of times.
Yeah.
But the U.S. Congress did not say. Now, they did say there'd be 13 stripes.
Right.
Of course, that wasn't always the case because what we call the Star-Spangled Banner that Francis Scott Key saw at Fort McHenry during the battle there in the War of 1812, it had 15 stripes
Right.
for Vermont and Tennessee. And then somebody figured out, hey, we have all this land out west, and they're all going to become states, and then the stripes will get like pinstripes if we keep adding. So they went back to 13 stripes. So that was standard. So the ladies of the town would do that. Oh, by the way, it was 1912 when Arizona became the 48th state that Congress finally said, you have to have the stars in a certain way.
1912?
1912.
It took up until
when
1912.
Arizona came into the Union. And then 2 more states came in after that, 1959. With,
for the stars. I'm sorry, I misheard you.
I'm just talking about the stars.
Yeah.
With Alaska being the 49th state, that's easy. 7 rows of 7 each.
Right.
But they had to make the flag that way. And then, of course, the one we have now with Hawaii, the 50th, they all have to be standard.
Yeah.
So the ladies would be doing it, and like it was a presentation. I mean, people lined up, the regimental guys lined up, and the colonel accepted the flag, and that's when they took it then off to war. Now, after a while, and I'm not exactly certain when, probably by sometime in 1862, flag companies got into the business because they saw a buck to be made.
Sure. Smart.
So they became, I guess, more standard.
Okay.
But when your flag was so bad, you were supposed to take it, and just, well, they didn't destroy them.
Right.
Because we have some of them. But same thing today. You're supposed to honorably burn the flag, I think is what...
Today, yeah. You take it to like American Legion or something like
do.
that. And yeah.
Right. But there were still regiments, like the colonel of the 4th Michigan, Harrison Jeffords. Just before the Battle of Gettysburg, he went back home to Michigan, and it was in Adrian, Michigan. He got this brand new flag, and he said that if need be, I will guard this flag with my life.
And he did.
And he had to at the Battle of the Wheat Field.
Yeah.
Because there was a Confederate capturing the flag, took the pole, and then he's grabbing the other side, and it was like a tug of war. He finally gets the flag, as far as the story I've heard, but then he's bayoneted, and he will die. Wheat Field, and they're carrying the flag, and he's saying, "Mother, mother, mother." I read that in Harry Fonce's Second Day book back in 1984. I went right to the end notes. There's got to be a story here. And he didn't have anything about it.
Really?
So the very next time that I went down to the National Archives in Washington, D.C., I checked to see if there was a mother's pension. And there was. And inside that folder, because you look at the original stuff, she had to prove he was supporting the family. And there was his last will and testament. He's 24 or something like that, 24 or 25, when he had that last will and testament made. He gave everything to his mother. So he's thinking, who's going to take care of my mother now that I'm gone?
Yeah.
But fighting like that, hand-to-hand combat, over a flag that meant so much.
And he was a colonel.
He was the colonel of the 4th Michigan.
See, that's what I'm saying. You know, it was a different sensibility back then. You know. Any other question, Grant?
Just one last one, Matt.
What's one? Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just wondering, is there some missing flag or one that hasn't turned up that's unaccounted for out there that historians or like Civil War fans over the years have wanted to have? Is there sort of holy grail battle flag out there that's missing that might turn up that people want?
That's a good one too, Grant. Grant, real quick before I let you go, do you have flags in Australia?
No, we just use hand signals.
Thank you. That's what I thought. All right, Grant. Deb, go ahead. What's the holy grail of battle flags that everybody would love to see?
Well, I mean, I have my personal flags that I would like to see.
Go ahead.
I don't know that any
what about yours?
Are missing. I don't know if anyone, that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
It might be in private collections, and, people don't display them.
Yeah.
So,
I never understood. Why have something for a private collection if you don't want to show it to people,
Some museum will want it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They can pay for it.
But I want to eyeball the 24th Michigan. I have seen pictures of it in books. The Iron Brigade, it's half there. I mean, because it is so shattered.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see it, and I know it is in the State Museum in Lansing, Michigan.
Oh.
I'm going to go west one more time in my life.
Can you get in to see it? Can you?
Yeah, it's a State
they'll
Museum.
let you see it.
I think it's on display.
Oh, it's on display.
I think.
Okay.
Well, when somebody looked it up for me, I hope it still is.
Is there something that we have here in the park collection that might not be on display that you know of that you would like to see that you haven't seen flag-wise?
Flag-wise.
Yeah.
Robert E. Lee had his own headquarters flag.
Yes.
I think that might, I don't know if it's in our museum, but I know I'd like to see his.
I would too.
And it was...
Because that was the original
national.
Stars and Bars, the first national, but he arranged
like a U, upside down U?
almost like an A, I think, right?
Yeah, with bars.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is so that's and that's what he kept throughout the war.
Mm-hmm.
So even though
Stars and Bars.
Yeah. Which I think that's pretty interesting is how he's like, yeah, okay, you could change the flag. I'm going to keep this. It's my own thing. Yeah, that would be cool. And then didn't the Army of Northern Virginia have its own flag too? It was just A and V on a red flag with some fringe.
Yeah, probably. But, they're usually, their standard is the St. Andrew's cross.
Right.
But they had brigade flags.
Well, yeah.
They had corps flags. They had company flags. There was all kind of flags.
So you say you're not talking the Confederacy.
No, I think it's mostly the Union side. Like a brigade flag, Strong Vincent's, his is the 3rd Brigade. Mm-hmm. So he had the Maltese cross in the middle. It was like a pennant.
Right.
Rather than rectangle.
That's the thing go ahead.
And then it would be a 3 blue stripes around the border because it's the 3rd Brigade of the 5th Corps, and it would have been red 1st Division.
Right.
They had these.
Well, and that's what's so cool. I think the Union Army really put some thought into it, these things. So you could see a group of men on horseback, And judging by the flag that's fluttering by them, you could tell if that's a division commander or a corps commander or a brigade commander just by the shape, right? Just the shape of the flag. Because the corps commander was like a swallowtail guidon, but it's big. And what was the division commander? That was like almost like, it was like a 3x5, wasn't it?
Yeah, smaller than a corps, but bigger than a brigade.
Yeah. But it was shaped more like a flag that we're used to seeing, correct?
Yeah,
something like that. Maybe Josh would know that one. You don't always see those depicted in movies, though.
No.
Right? And then you have like with the cavalry, for example, you know, you've got every troop has its own guidon, Company A, 7th or whatever.
They were swallowtail.
Swallowtail, yep. And
that's a swallowtail.
Yes, that's the swallowtail one too. Okay, Josh says, Matt, you're thinking of the chief engineer of the Army of Northern Virginia flag. So the red one that I was talking about that says ANV, that's what he's talking about
Chief
there.
engineer?
I thought that was the Army's flag. He only used it until the end of the Gettysburg campaign. So that Lee's headquarters flag he only used until the end of the campaign, apparently. Very, very interesting. And Lee's flag is in Richmond.
It is.
Yes.
Museum of the Confederacy.
Yeah. Is it at the Museum of the Confederacy, Josh? Okay, so let's do this here. Grant, thank you for the call, and it is always great to hear your Australian twang, and we will talk to you next time. We're going to take a break right now, ladies and gentlemen. And, no. One more story I can't believe we didn't hit this one already. The 16th Maine.
Oh, yes. That's a good story.
Yes.
16th Maine would be the rear guard regiment as the First Corps is leaving west and northwest of town. This incident happened, it would be in the railroad cut behind Lee's headquarters, what we call Lee's headquarters, the Thompson House, the easternmost railroad cut. They're going to be overwhelmed. The color bearer went over to the colonel, his name was Charles Tilden, I believe, and said, "Can I tear the flag up and give it to the survivors?" Now, of course, this is the nth, you don't do this.
Right.
But they don't want their flag captured. So the colonel said, "Yes, do it." And there aren't too many survivors, but they all got a piece of that flag. And when I tell that story, we don't get many Maine people to come, but I do like to tell that story. I always said, now, I'm telling the story, and then they dig in this little box, and they say, "Here's a piece of the 16th Maine that's been in our family." I'd have a heart attack right on the spot.
Yeah.
I did see a piece up at Augusta, Maine, in one of it's their state museum or their Capitol building. So the story is true. And also is probably true that Colonel stuck his sword into the ground there at that eastern railroad cut and broke it off at the hilt. And of course, you know what I'm wondering.
Where's
Is it still in the ground?
Oh.
But
that would be interesting.
It could belong to the railroad company, and we're not supposed to go down on those railroad tracks because we do have freight trains going through Gettysburg.
Yeah, but I still see people going down on them.
They're doing it illegally.
Yeah, I know.
mean, they do have no trespassing signs
all over. I've done it. Yeah. So that, and I always say that too. Is it would be amazing if we could find where every tatter of that flag has gone and reunite it. But they never did that, right? They never were able to.
Not that I know of. And I bet people up in Maine do have that in their family.
Oh, I'm sure. Sitting in an attic somewhere thinking, "Oh, that's great grandpa's old junk," not realizing the importance it is.
Yeah.
So if you're a listener from Maine, and go around and ask all your friends, like, do you have any old junk from great grandpappy or great whatever it would be by this point, and go through it and see. There might be a little piece of a flag there. That would be so cool. It's got to be out there. There's so much stuff that's still out there that we don't even know about yet.
I think I Googled it one time, and they make a little case around it. It's not just a loose piece. The pictures I've seen.
Mm-hmm. We do, yeah. So we do have, or we do know about certain pieces that are in existence. Yeah. All right. Now what we're going to do is take a break to hear from our lovely sponsors. Of course, I'm going to continue drinking my delicious cup of Little Ground Top. And we'll be right back after these words when we come back with our questions submitted by our patrons. Be right back. Okay. Do you need a break or anything? Or
I think I'm okay.
okay, you need water or something?
I have
Or
some.
You got some. Okay. All right, let me just mute the mics for a second so I can see the space. All right, and we are back. Also, we are going to take your calls if you want to call in while we're asking questions here. The phone number is 717-420-1978. And we're going to go with our first question today, submitted by Kevin Randolph. He says, hello. Could Deb give her interpretation of Hayes dragging flags after Longstreet's assault on July 3rd? Any parts untrue that we've always heard, and any missing details from the popular history? So give us just a story for the people who don't know. What is this story that he's referring to?
Okay, the Pickett, Pettigrew, Trimble assault has been repulsed, and a lot of flags were captured by Hayes' division guys and Gibbons. And Hayes told one of his staff officers, I think, to get him a flag, a captured flag. So he supposedly got one or two or three, I've heard different numbers, and he trails it behind his horse's tail, you know. And there's actually a drawing of this I found online. I don't know how far down he went, but supposedly General Alexander Webb got close to him and said, some of those flags are really my unit's flag. And Hayes said to a staff officer, get him half a dozen. Let him have a half a dozen. But when you look at the, they credited, you know, it's in a lot of the ORs, the official reports, they credited, you know, a man or a unit with the captured flag.
Right.
It's almost perfect. You know, the ones that were taken by Hayes's men were from, you know, it would be the left flank of the Confederates. You know, it wasn't Pickett's flags. And then the ones that Webb took, they were Pickett's regiments in his front. That's who was in his front.
Right.
So Webb was a little sensitive about that whole thing there. And I found, you know, the two books that I use is Stuart's Pickett's Charge, and
I love that book.
I love it too.
Yeah.
So well written, but
Yeah.
his sources are a little, he puts his footnotes in, you know, I'd rather have them like normal.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Wayne Motts and Britt Eisenberg did the Pickett's Charge.
No, Jim Hessler.
Hessler.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Hessler. What did Brett do? I know
Britt did the
collaborated.
Peach Orchard with
Peach Orchard.
Jim. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So it's Wayne and Jim, and they have a little vignette about this business. So I think I don't know about any untrue, you know, the untrue things, what he's heard.
No, he's just asking if there are any untrue parts that you're aware of, mythical or whatever. No, okay.
No, I haven't heard.
All right, then let's go on to the next one. Brian Durenick says, hey, Matt, here's my question. While the number of Confederate battle flags captured at Gettysburg has been well documented, has the total number of Union flags, including the national flag and state regimental colors, ever been accurately determined?
You know, I go to the ORs for that, and they don't have it like the Union. The Union really specified, you know, how many were taken for the whole battle. I know individual stories, you know, like that 150th Pennsylvania, but I have never seen.
Was it not considered that big of a deal to the Confederates?
It was.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be.
Now, I do know that Lee kept some spare flags
Okay.
in case any of their flags were taken, because the railroad cut one, this second Mississippi's was captured by Francis Waller of the 6th Wisconsin.
Right.
they will have another flag by the 3rd of July.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's captured too. I think it was. So they lost 2 flags. But no, I don't know of any documentation. I don't think I've ever read a firsthand, like the firsthand stuff.
Yeah.
Just these individual stories sometimes.
Okay. Let's see. Rick Scarce says, I'm excited about this episode, and I guess my questions are more flag fundamentals than true flag stories of the sort Deb conveyed in her excellent Guide Academy session. Oh, very good. So if these are out of order, please toss them into the recycle bin. Who says I recycle? Would you ask Deb to cover some of the basics, like the material used to make the flags? We've got that. Who sewed them? Got that. Their size, did that. Length of flagpoles, did that. And Union-Confederate differences, did that. For instance, my understanding is the Confederate regiments only carried a single battle flag. Is that correct? Was it at Gettysburg only the stars and bars? So we kind of covered that whole thing there, but I wanted Rick to hear his name and his question on the show. Do you want to add anything to that?
Sometimes there was a state flag, sometimes there wasn't. That's all I can say about that. And another thing about the halter, you mentioned that they don't have to freestand hold the big flag.
Which is,
they do have a little halter.
Yeah, a baldric it's called.
Baldric.
Yes.
I'll believe you, man.
It sounds obscene, but that's what they call it.
You can see that on the 143rd Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And you can see it on that 13th Massachusetts.
Okay,
so the artists did a pretty good job, when they're putting these monuments together.
And you can see that in a parade.
In a parade.
In a parade, yeah. I mean, because it's, first of all, you want the flag held high. You want it held straight. And, the flag we have is so big. On a windy day, you're really building that upper body strength, fighting the wind. Mm-hmm. It's really tough, and that helps stabilize it, because otherwise it'd be going all over the place.
Right.
So, so those are handy to have. You got to have those. All right, then the final question. I don't have a name on this one here, so I'm sorry if you recognize your question. I didn't copy over the name, I guess. Matt and Deb, my favorite battle flag story is the struggle between the 107th Ohio and the 8th Louisiana on Cemetery Hill on the night of July 2nd. Adjutant Peter Franklin Young of the 107th Ohio deserves the Medal of Honor for not only saving his regiment's flag, but also capturing the battle flag of the 8th Louisiana. I don't have time to tell the story. I'm sure Deb can help me out with this one. I am currently doing research on Adjutant Captain Young and have discovered some very interesting details about his life and death from family records, newspapers, etc. Would love to share it someday. Sure, anytime, let me know. Young was wounded severely in this contest, yet I have not at this time discovered what hospital may have gone to after this wounding. It does not appear to be the Spangler Farm. I do know he had to find his own way home after the battle, and that when he arrived, he had been presumed dead. Deb, if you have any interesting details, please share, and thank you for coming on the show again. Yes. And I'm sorry I don't have your name on there.
That is a good one, and I don't know that story. So I would like to learn that story. The 107th Ohio, that's 11th Corps. And the 11th Corps got the shaft. And, the 12th Corps, too, did not receive medals of honor.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them got it.
Is it because they were gone and now they were out west they kind of got the shaft from the ORs, too?
Both the 11th and the 12th moved. What they formed the 20th Corps. So they're kind of the stepchild.
Right.
I might call them. So I don't know this story. I would like to know it.
If I can find out whose email that was, and then we can contact him about that and everything. But yeah,
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. Well, okay. That's about it here. That's all the questions we have submitted, and I don't see any other callers on the line there. So I'm going to thank you once again, Deb, for coming in and doing this. Always a pleasure. Always have a great time talking with you. And the audience loves you too. And we love the audience. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening, for participating in the show and the calls and the questions. And we will talk to you next time. All right, Deb.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you very much.
That was fun.
Yes, I always have a good time talking to you. You know what it is? You love to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then you love to share what you learn.
That's right.
And that's I don't know. That's
And there's always something to learn.
there is always something to learn. Exactly.
Nobody knows everything.
Well, I do, but you're right. Everybody else doesn't.
Okay. So I will send you want this on an email. I'm doing
Yes,
this
send all
flag.
those in an email, and I might be able to scan that